The all too familiar sight of the WJ. So she's back from my buddy Adam. And these are the axles that I built I think a year or two ago. Got this Dana 30. It's got the ARB. It did the whole truss guy. And it's actually a JK30. And the rear is JK44 that we swapped over. She's a beaut. But anyway, got it out for the first trip to Roush Creek, and after a little bit of hammering down, too many beans, we ruined the front gears. So I'll be pulling that out, do new gears. So the first thing I'm gonna do, it kind of got jacked up here. Gonna get the wheels off and then pull the hubs and shafts out all together, so I'm not taking that apart too. So once that's apart, I can take the diff cover off and get the carrier out, replace the gears. All right, now I gotta get this tie rod off here. Got a 21 millimeter on top. Hopefully I don't need to hold it at all. Get the side little tap. Don't want to bust up the threads. There we go. Don't really like to do this because not hardened and also 3/8 inch, but it's only 12.13 I have, so that's what I gotta do. Kind of hard to do with one hand, but just to get these out. All right, let's get this cover off and see what's inside. All right, so that is the problem. So, gotta rip her out. I'll take off the carrier bearing cap bolts and the caps, then pull the carrier out. I gotta get this guy undone too, which is attached on top of the diff here. So I got my punch, which I'm gonna punch the old races out in there, go around it, knock it out. Same thing for this one, but from the other side. So was getting some wheel hop, and then all of a sudden you hear a noise. So my theory is when the wheels were coming back down during one of the hops, you know, it gained traction all of a sudden, and then the pinion kept spinning and took a chunk off. So my theory, I mean, wheel hop is just never good. It could break anything, drive shaft, U-joint, all because of that sudden change in energy and motion. I'll get these races out, ring gear off. I need to pull the shim off the old pinion. All right, I got the diff all cleaned up. Well, pretty well at least. I use brake clean, paper towels, a little nylon brush to kind of brush anything out. And then I use a vacuum as well. to get any dust out. There was some metal dust down here, but it's pretty good. And as you can see, the races are out. Here's all the old stuff that came out. And I'm just taking off the ring gear now. This little tip makes it easy. If you're trying to remove an old gear that you're not going to use, you can do it like this. Now, I say not going to use because if you are going to reuse this, not a good method because you could screw up the threads on the gear. Also, I don't want to use bolts that you're going to reuse either, so I'm not using any of these. But you can do this. I should be using a smaller hammer. Okay, now it's loose. There you go. Alright, so this is how you can get your bearings off without ruining them, although I'm not going to reuse these anyway. But so if you need to take them off to change shims, or something like this where you're just changing the bearings out completely, here's an easy way to get them off. So I got this tool. You can find this on multiple websites. I got a cheaper version. You can get it from Yukon, which is pretty pricey, but it's like the same thing basically. It might be better quality, I don't know, but this has worked well for me. So what you need is the race for your bearing. So you put the race on, and then let's see. For this, we're gonna need this guy. Doesn't really matter which way it goes. I guess I'll go this way. It fits best. Okay, and then this goes on. And I'm gonna have to loosen this up. Alright, so I got it loosened up a little. Gonna bring it down a little more. Let's see. Bring it down all the way. Can adjust this up a little. It's a little tricky to learn at first, but it's actually really easy once you get it. So, alright, went all the way down. So now it's sitting on the bearing. Then you bring it up a little bit. I'm tightening a little. Alright, now it's just off. You can see in there it's just off the bearing. Now you bring this down to seat on the race. So it just touches. Okay. Right there. Now we can put the collars on. So I need to figure out which one goes on here. Might be this one. Alright, that should be pretty good. So the openings of these collars or whatever, these halves, are different sizes. So this side is different than the other side. So you could flip it for different size bearings. Same with this bigger one, which I'm not going to use on this. So then you put that on, you tighten the top retainer. I got the old ring gear off, which I showed you, and I got both bearings off the carrier. I had to heat up the ring gear to get it on, so I used a torch, just went around it, got it evenly warm, not hot, but it was warm, and it slid right on. Then I couldn't get it on before because it's such tight clearance. Then I got the bolts in. I put 2 in to hold the ring gear on, and then I put the thread locker on the rest. got them in hand tight, took the two out that I put in originally, put the thread locker on, and then put them back in and torqued it in like a nice star pattern. I started with 30 foot-pounds and worked up in increments to 80, which is recommended for the JK30, not other 30s. Well, some are, but this specifically calls for 80 foot-pounds of torque. So that's on. Now I'm just checking to make sure that it actually is seated properly with this feeler gauge. So got the pinion cleaned up, got the bearing on. I'm about to put the race in, which I had in the freezer, these two, right in there. So let's see how this goes. Should probably get this ice off. Frost. Although it'll melt anyway. Alright, oh, and I got the new bearing race installation kit, which someone told me about. I forget who it was, one of my YouTube followers. Or maybe he wasn't a follower, but he commented on my one video. So just tap her in real nice like. Here we have the new races installed with the oil splash something. I don't really know what you call it, honestly. I forget. But anyway, so those are installed. I use the feeler gauge again, like the ring gear, to check behind each race to make sure they're seated all the way. So those are good to go now. To me, the most accurate way to measure the actual spreading of this is from where the shims go here to where the shims go here. Instead of going off of this, which can move and will move inside of the hole that the stud kind of goes into. So this eliminates any kind of inaccuracy between here and here, because these don't really move exactly the same. And now I'm trying to figure out what I'm going to do with the shims. So here's the shims I had been using. These are extras, the new ones. This is right side, left side, as this goes in too. I did put some oil, some gear oil on each bearing, these two, and the pinion bearings just a little bit. So it has the same amount of friction, or close at least. Okay, I also cleaned these very well with brake clean. That includes the bolts. The threads are clean and dry. That's important because they're going to be loctited eventually. So I'm going to measure these out. I'm going to not reuse them unless I need to, just because I'm sure they're not perfect anymore. So I'll try to find the same ones from the new pile, and then we'll try that and hopefully get a good pattern. If not, we can adjust. Now I can tap in the shims just to make sure they're seated. You gotta be really careful with the small ones, but this is a big one I'm hitting here. Just make sure it's all seated nice. I'll put the caps on, I'll take this guy off, and we'll see what the pattern looks like. So far, actually, that's already a good sign. So, all right. Well, that hurt. It dropped the case spreader on my finger. So don't do that. All right, after my little mishap, put some clamps on here to hopefully keep the case spreader on there. Of course, they're gonna get my way a little more, but it's probably worth the extra struggle instead of actually smashing my finger, because that wasn't so bad, thankfully. What? All right, okay. Where are we at? Oh, so took out everything inside there. So it's time to get the pinion installed for the final installation. So I got the crush wash, or crush, what do you call this thing? And I've been at it so long I don't even remember the name for things, but working on instinct here. So crush sleeve, sorry. Got that on here so I don't forget. So I have to put the outer pinion bearing in and then tap the seal in, and then place the pinion in and put the yoke on. Again, I'm going to tap it on again pretty much so that the outer bearing slides on the press fit part of the shaft here. And then I'll tighten it down again to the proper preload, which is 12 to 15 inch-pounds of torque. It's gonna be a little more with the seal on there, even though I have grease on the seal. It actually comes with grease on it, which is pretty cool. From Motive Gears, shout out to them. They got a really nice installation kit with everything. Even comes with a little brush for the marking compound, but I didn't realize that, didn't see it there. So I am installing this pinion seal. Again, don't forget, here's your bearing, your outer bearing, and the oil slinger thing. So it's got a little further to go. I'm actually using this old race, which is from, I think it was from the inner pinion bearing. Fits perfectly here to help tap it on without destroying the edge with a hammer. Guys, so this was a nightmare, but it's all good now. I ended up having to make this tool, if you will, piece of angle iron and 3/8 inch flat stock, and basically just drilled 2 holes. Got these grade 8 bolts, threw it through there, one here, one there, to keep the yoke from spinning. So that ended up working once I got the grade 8 bolts and tightened them down. And then I had to get this 3/4 inch drive breaker bar. I got it from Harbor Freight. It's like 20 bucks, I think. And I ended up having to also get the 3/4 inch drive sockets because I broke a adapter to a 1/2 inch socket. So this plus the bar from my jack was what, oh, and I had to stand on it and still basically jump. I was able to actually finally crush the crush sleeve, and she's all torqued down. I don't know where my torque wrench is, but it's about 16 inch-pounds of torque. So they call for 12 to 15 for this axle, but I mean, the seal actually adds a little resistance too, so it's like falsely high, just a little bit, but I think 16 is fine. I'd rather a little tight than a little loose, so that prevents any deflection. which could cause more gear damage. So I'm just showing you here the bolts that I ended up using versus the one I started with, which bent. And here's the actual setup that did work to crush the crush sleeve. Here you can see 16 inch-pounds of torque on the preload. Alright, so yesterday I got the backlash set decently. I need to tighten it up a little bit more, but I also ran the pattern just to see how it looked. Lastly, we got the final pattern. So here's one side and the other side, and it came out pretty well, nice and tight with a good backlash. So I kind of didn't record finishing up the Jeep, but it went back together really well. I basically put back everything. So after the pinion was installed finally, I put the carrier back in and tightened the backlash up. I added some shims to the passenger side, just a little bit to kind of push it closer to the pinion. I got the backlash, as you saw in the video, to 8 thousandths of an inch. So I got that back in. I got the copper air line reinstalled back up there. I had to clean where it goes through the diff housing. Had to clean that out. There's mud in there. So Adam got the air lines run now actually, so that won't be a problem anymore. Other than that, we sealed it up. You know, filled it up with oil. Oh, the axle, the end of the one axle shaft was actually a little twisted. The splines you could see were just like kind of curved, but not bad enough to warrant replacing them, especially since he's going to be replacing this whole axle not too long. So ended up going pretty well. He came up, we slapped it back together, loaded up, he went home. He just took it on a wheeling trip actually, so didn't break. But I'm sure he has more to say about that, and we'll get some footage of the trip and what's more to come. So thanks for watching, and I'll get some more stuff out for you guys.